shortly on LinkedIn. Let's see if it works. It does. We should be getting a notification here shortly that we're live. Starting soon. Okay, so it's some kind of bug. No, it worked. Okay. So that time it worked. Last time I did not get this working, folks. So welcome. We are live on LinkedIn. I believe we're also live on Facebook. Let's find Facebook and double check that real quick. And then I believe we're also live on YouTube Live. Look at that. Awesome. Okay. So welcome everyone. This is a quick tutorial on how to set up Restream connected to multiple platforms. You do need a Restream subscription to this. So you'll notice that my subscription is active and I believe it's the pro level license. I have a couple people that have used this with me, so you can see that some of the streams have been targeted to other user accounts, and those are part of my team, which I believe I set up under here. It's the professional license, and then you add them from their email. In this case, though, to set up multiple places that I want to go live with Microsoft Teams, the first thing I do is I click on New Stream in the upper right-hand corner. And then from New Stream, instead of using the Restream Studio, which would be similar to what we've done with StreamYard in the past, I'm going to configure the encoder RTMP. And you can do this with obviously OBS, Zoom, WebEx, but you can also do it with Microsoft Teams. So the way that I do this with Microsoft Teams is I get the URL and stream key, similar to what you get from LinkedIn Live itself or from YouTube or Facebook. But by sending the stream to Restream, and then on the right, configuring where you want to go live, whether it's from a LinkedIn page like Microsoft Speakers Hub, LinkedIn profile like Dan Ray, Facebook, Twitter, or X, TikTok if you have enough followers, Facebook, YouTube, etc. You configure those over to the right. And so in this case, I want to go live on the Microsoft Speakers Hub, but I don't want to go live as another event. I want to use the event that I already set up, which is called Microsoft's New Font for Office. And this event has been scheduled for 4 p.m. So we're maybe a couple minutes late to start, but we have now started live. Once you configure the event to be connected to the event that was already scheduled, you save that. You can then also configure other channels. So I can configure Facebook, I can configure YouTube. And then what I do to go live is I add in the custom streaming app to my meeting. You can see here I'm logged in as Satya Nadella, and Satya has his avatar turned on, so it looks a little bit more like the CEO of Microsoft than me. And we get the stream URL and stream key. And unlike with LinkedIn, where we have to start the stream in Teams and then start the stream over on the LinkedIn video page, which Teresa Cyrus and myself have documented, here, once you start streaming, the stream, once it connects, is just live on those multiple platforms. So it gets sent over to Restream, and then from Restream, it gets redistributed to all of those different locations. So yesterday on the Azure, the Journey to the Cloud event, we went through and looked at this in Microsoft Whiteboard. So if I bring up my whiteboards and share my screen or share the whiteboard app, let's go ahead and do that now. Whether we're using, let's go back to this one, which explains how we're doing this. So from Restream, we've got it configured for 3 locations: LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. And we're using Microsoft Teams to send to all those different platforms. So to cancel the live stream or to end the live stream, all I have to do is then go back to Teams and end the meeting in Teams, or stop the stream, and then the stream stops on the other platforms as well. So hopefully there are not any questions on this. It's not as clear as I had hoped, but the thing that's nice about the option to capture these screens in PowerPoint is then I can show you what I did to go live. So I confirmed from Teams that I was going to go live. Once I said start streaming, maybe 30 seconds later, it caught up on LinkedIn and live as the event that I scheduled. And then on Facebook and YouTube, I let it create new events for me. So the topic of this live was to talk about the new Microsoft font, which was standardized in 2024, I believe, 2023, 2024. Microsoft came out with a new font for the Office application. So let's see if we've got a browser that we can open here to look up Teams, or sorry, Office fonts, new 2021 Bierstadt. There's Office Watch, Wikipedia, The Verge in 2023, and several others announcing the new default font after 7 years. Now, if we go back to the Microsoft.com, originally published in July 2023, Office has a new theme. The 5 released replacement candidate fonts were Bierstadt, Grandview, Seaford, Skeena, and Tenorite. People chose Bierstadt as the preferred font, and Microsoft gave it a new name called Aptos. It talks about narrow, serif, or serif, and monospace. So when we're in an application like PowerPoint, I get out of presentation mode here, keep my ink. What we can see when we highlight Bierstadt is that I'm actually using the Bierstadt font, which is still in the list from a standpoint of fonts that are supported. And then you'll notice the code name for Aptos is actually the Aptos font, which is one of the new fonts that Microsoft gave us to use I can download that font. Then we're using Aptos body and then Aptos black for the word code name. You can see that it's a little heavier. And for the word Aptos, we could change that to change it to another version of Aptos, mono spaced Aptos. Now by default, all new fonts that you use in the Office applications like PowerPoint, Outlook, Word, Excel use Aptos. So you don't have to do anything. It's like the new default template. And they were introduced in 2021. Microsoft did some fun little advertisements for this new font, like the Twitter post from the Microsoft.com account that they were going to make in 2021 a new font available. 2 years later, the new font was introduced, and that new font can be changed by right-clicking on a field or looking at the ribbon in PowerPoint, and then from the ribbon going ahead and selecting from the drop-down Bierstadt, the old font. And by default, you don't have to do anything. Aptos is already there, both at the top on the ribbon. And if you right click on a cell in PowerPoint, you see that you're using Bierstadt, or sorry, Aptos by default now. So we keep that ink that we used, insert another slide here, and we could go back and find some of the Microsoft information about the new fonts. Right, Microsoft.com means that all of the results from Bing will end in Microsoft.com. So beyond Calibre is that original article from 2021 that discusses the new default fonts. So I could grab this part of this web page, go into a new slide, and just slap in this Beyond Calibre article. And if we go back, we can likely find Access rolls out a new theme, new Office font on learn.microsoft.com. And we can see that there's been information about the new font. And the demo fonts, I believe, are all still there. The ones that didn't win are still in the list. So if I type in Skina, it's a cloud-based font, so it has to download, but then I'm not using Skina as the top of that field in PowerPoint. So some cool new features in PowerPoint. If we open Excel here, you'll notice that the same thing holds true for a blank workbook in Excel. So as I open the menu here, I zoom in on my screen a little bit using magnifier. See that Aptos Narrow is the font that PowerPoint uses by default. Aptos Narrow. So if I type in January, hit enter, and highlight that, pull it down, get the 12 months, and all 12 of those months are typed in Aptos narrow by default. So we get all that information in Excel. Besides Excel, we also have Outlook here. We open Outlook, maybe hop into a new email. You can see that the information in Excel basic text uses Speedy, but the email, not the signature, uses Aptos by default. So it's in PowerPoint, it's in Outlook. Where else might we find the new default font? Microsoft Word. See other of the 4 main Office applications. So if we open a new PowerPoint here, you'll notice that new documents are using Aptos as the new font. You can see that up in the upper right, Aptos. Wherever we are in the new interface, it's using that by default. So with that, folks, we've taken a look at both PowerPoint, Excel, Word, and Outlook, and the fact that the new font for, let's see if we can make this bigger here. Yeah. See that right there. Make it bigger, do that too. But we can see that it's Aptos, and then there's different choices in the list there for us. So if you have any questions about the new font, feel free to put them in the social media here. Put a question on LinkedIn. One of the interesting things about this technology that we're using is that the comments are separate from anything we're doing here centrally. So if I want to ask if anybody has questions, I might have to go out to those different social media platforms. I don't think if you're using Teams as the production software, that you get any kind of integration with the comments. If you're using Restream or StreamYard, they also try to aggregate comments so you can see them from one interface and you don't have to pop over to all these different platforms to see what's going on. But because of how I set it up, I think I've got to pop over to the different platforms like YouTube, find my videos, find my live, find my other account that I went live on. There we go. And I've posed the questions in all 3 social media environments. And then if there were questions, what we would be able to see here if we go to LinkedIn is under notifications, any notifications that might have come through. And we might also see these under the Microsoft Speakers Hub as well. The page posts should include our live. Right down here, and I can see there are 3 questions. Carl. Yeah, I don't know if there's any Segoe UI improvements. You might be referring to just if there's Carl, great question. So Segoe UI, I'm not familiar if there's any improvements. I know that you can still change the font. So in any of the applications, if you prefer, like Word has a default default.dot for the default template. I believe you can change the behavior of what the font is that's chosen by default there. If you don't do anything with that, however, Aptos becomes your default. In Windows 11, that's a great question. I do not believe there is any plan to change it in Windows 11. I also don't believe there's any plan to change it in Teams. So Teams uses a different font. However, I have noticed in designer.microsoft.com, which I believe is still only available from consumer versions, and it doesn't look like I have access to Microsoft Designer on my work computer, but if I were on a personal computer, I can get to designer.microsoft.com, and one of the options there is to use the Aptos font as well. Great question. So this would be the only other thing that I've noticed about using Teams through Restream to all these other platforms. If we had these folks in the Teams meeting, the Teams chat would be where we go back and forth, or the folks could actually come off mute if they're in the Teams meeting. And because we're not using Teams to actually send this to LinkedIn or others, LinkedIn doesn't have a built-in live software. So you have to use something like Teams or Restream or StreamYard, or they've got a number of partners, preferred partners, that again make the comments kind of more seamless, if you will, than having to go out and see if there were comments and then comment on the comments. But it's not that difficult to go out and find the comments and make comments on the platforms. I've stopped sharing my screen, so pretty soon the stream will go back to just Satya's photo or avatar. And if I flip over to my camera, see if my camera will fire up there. There we go. You'll see me here at the end of our little video. Got my virtual background, got my Paul's Boutique BC Boys shirt on, and I'm planning to go for a bike ride around Lake Michigan. So go out to the lake, take some of the bike paths, maybe north or south. Haven't decided which direction I'll go, maybe down to the museums. And should probably give David Guiard a heads up that I'm riding around because he rides in the city quite a bit as well. So I hope you've enjoyed this live. I just wanted to double check my settings from a standpoint of using Teams through Restream to target multiple applications or events. We had an issue yesterday. I might have just gotten impatient. It might have eventually caught up and connected. But I believe Teresa and I gave it maybe 5 minutes, 4 minutes. Felt like a long time that we were trying to get it to connect to our current event for Journey to the Cloud. Since we weren't able to do that, I just ended up targeting it to my profile, and then I cleaned up the video today. So with that, folks, I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you next time on either LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, or elsewhere on social media. Have a great weekend, everyone. And we'll turn off the streaming here.